A bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work. Today I'm in Pepperell, Mass, and I'm interviewing Charlie Shaden, owner of Evening Sun Fly Fishing Shop. Charlie has been selling fishing equipment and teaching people how to fish for years, and he's well known in the fly fishing community. Let's check out his store. Maybe Charlie will tell us about his secret fishing spots. Welcome to It's Your Town. So Charlie, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. My first question I have for you is, when did you start the business and what inspired you to start the business?
I started the business 15 years ago, almost to the day.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
This is actually my anniversary.
Oh,
month.
excellent. Great timing.
It is. What inspired me to start the business was I also work another job where I actually earn an income and do something supplemental that was a non-compete. I started it with a measured amount of money, hoping it would go well, and extremely gratified at the loyalty of the local patrons, and people come from all over.
Did you have a lot of choices? I mean, you obviously thought, I want to open up a business to supplement my income. Did you instantly know it's fly fishing, or did you have any other options?
Well, that's a great question, because the way I typically have answered that for folks is I've taken an avocation and turned it into a vocation.
Yes.
And so, no, I knew right away that I wanted to share my 55 years of knowledge about fly fishing with folks, and also get to use my teaching background. I was a math teacher for 14 years. So, coupled with my knowledge of the sport and my ability to be able to transfer that knowledge to folks, it was a kind of a seamless fit for me.
I mean, there's no better way of taking your passion and combining it with a business. I mean, that's success right there. As you know, I was here a couple of months ago, and I bought a whole system for my wife. We're going to Montana, and we're very excited about it. And the interesting thing that I recognize is you wanted to teach first, sell second. You spent about an hour with me going over the rod, explaining what each part does. And I thought that was profound, because other shops, they just want to sell you something and see you later. You mentioned teaching earlier. It makes sense. You wanted to teach more and educate more, and that was your primary goal, versus me walking out of here spending money. And I really appreciate that, because fly fishing is sort of a technical sport. It does take some knowledge and teaching, and it's great that you have that background, because that's what you need in order to really appreciate fly fishing and excel in it.
It's very interesting to hear you say that, because that sort of feedback is what fuels my continually helping clients to better understand what the components of fly fishing are, because they are the future stewards of clean water. The people who typically are getting into the sport now are younger people, fueled by many different things, from the pandemic to an alternative to playing golf. As I like to say, you don't need a tea time to fish. I've always operated under the premise of, I have two ears in one mouth. Use them appropriately. I like to hear what clients' needs are and concerns are, and probing is the best way to do that, so that when they go out the door, they really feel comfortable that their money was spent correctly. They understand the items that they bought. And, more importantly, they get full use of the items that they bought. As I like to also say, fly rods don't go bad. They're not like milk, you have to throw them away. Actually, fly rods get better with age.
Oh, okay.
Because the better you get at the sport, the more you derive and extract from the merchandise that you buy. It's really curious how that happens, that fly rods actually get better.
Some of the services that you provide here, you actually teach and guide, correct? Can
Correct.
you talk a little bit about that?
Correct. Yeah, clients don't want a place to just go buy something. If that was the case, then they would point and click all day long.
Right, right.
What clients are looking for is, in many instances, the initial hand-holding that gets them through the trouble spots.
So people can take fly fishing courses through you,
That's correct.
and you actually offer guided tours. So you bring them out.
That's correct.
You provide, in many cases, all the
Equipment,
All
all
the
the
equipment.
gear. All they need to do is come with a big smile on their face.
So, well, that's easy enough. So locally, we're in Pepperell, Mass. I know the answer to this question, but locally, there are trout spots right down the street, correct?
Which was one of the reasons why I opened the shop up in the location that I opened it up. It had features to the shop, which therefore would eventually benefit me as a shop owner. But it also had close proximity to an area trout stream, which I've been stalking along with the State Department with volunteers here at the shop for about 35 to 40 years.
So what river are you referring to?
The Nissitissit River is right down the street. It's about an eighth of a mile away, literally.
So it's great that previously you mentioned how COVID has actually inspired people to get outdoors. I love the outdoors. I'm always hiking, and I found it interesting because typically, especially in the winter, when I'm hiking in the woods in the winter, there's not too many hikers. And I saw an increase. And I heard reports that if you went to Walmart or any of these other big box stores, there was no fishing gear because everybody was buying fishing gear. So COVID, did it actually increase your sales?
What it did was, no, it didn't increase my sales only because I was closed till June 21st last year.
Okay.
But I did notice that there was a big uptick in interest, which is pushed itself out to this year. A little bit last year, but more this year, because a lot of items were not available last year. You couldn't get a kayak, you couldn't get a canoe, you couldn't get a bike to ride outside. You know, you had trouble finding a specific fly rod. But as they are coming back more and more, you know, we've had the opportunity here to be able to supply those items.
So you suspect this season you will see an increase because now you have available supplies, and that interest was building, which makes sense.
And I've also tried to increase my presence in social media.
Hey, that's why we're here.
which I'm not I'll be the first to admit, not as strong as I should be. But my young daughter, who's a millennial, is wonderfully strong in it and very willing to help me. So that exposure on the social media side, as well as my ability to keep clients happy and have them coming back to the store on a regular basis, I think this year, I think I'll see the benefits of all of that.
Right. So let's just talk briefly about what you do sell in the store.
My wife asks me all the time, what's the biggest item that you sell in the shop? And when I sit back and reflect on that, I say, you know what it is, son? It's hope. And she says, what? I said, yeah, because they hope whatever they buy is going to work when they go out the door. So it starts with the hope. And from the hope, it gets transferred into specific products like a complete full line, bottom up, from boots to waders to fly rods and reels, and a very large selection of fly lines, to 26,000 flies being in the store, most of a very large portion of which I tie myself, so my clients are really interested in buying my flies. I sell a lot of the ancillary equipment like the sunglasses they're going to need and the wading staffs that they're going to use as sort of, I like to call, a third point of contact to the ground to help keep folks upright when they're walking on uneven substrate. I think it would be easier for us to say what I don't sell here as opposed to what I do sell. And pretty much that's what I want my clients to feel, is that when they come to the shop, every time they're going to find what they need, because nothing more disappointing than going to a shop and looking for 7 items and walking out with 2.
So Charlie, I know why I love to fish. Why do you think people love to fly fish?
I think people like to fly fish because it's really, in many respects, an execution of a gentle art. I think beyond that as well, it's there's an ethereal part to it, where it gets folks outside in a setting which I like to describe as trout live in beautiful places. So they like to be surrounded by beautiful places. It's a terrific stress reduction activity, and I think also one of the lures is that, again, I refer to often is that fly fishing is the endeavor of intermittent gratification. In that when you go out, you're not always catching a fish on every cast. And what keeps you coming back, it's sort of like, pulling a arm on a slot machine. What keeps you coming back is the intermittent tugs that you get when you fly fish. So you can go out and spend an hour or two, enjoy the flora, the fauna, the beauty of the streams. It's like the old expression says, people spend a lifetime fly fishing, never realizing that it's not just the fish they're after.
Very great answer.
Thank
Wow. So lastly, and you don't need to answer this,
Yeah.
but I'm going to ask you anyways. What is your favorite local fishing spot?
Well, it really is an easy answer, and it's the Squannacook River. It's the river that my godfather brought me to start me in fly fishing right after I lost my father. My father died. My godfather took me under his wing and brought me to the Squannacook River, and when I was 16 years old, and showed me the first concepts of what fly fishing was. I'm only sorry that he couldn't have lived long enough to see the fly shop open up and for him to be part of it. And so as a result of that, the Squannacook River, that is, holds a very special spot in my life and in my heart. You can't see them here now, but I've made maps of the rivers, and I put on the maps. I've sort of become a fledgling cartographer of sorts, and I'm making maps of area rivers. I have one for the Millers River in Central Mass, and I just finished my third map on the Deerfield River.
Okay, Charlie, so how can people find you online, and what is your address?
The address for the fly shop is eveningsunflyshop.com, and that's S-U-N, eveningsunflyshop.com, which, by the way, the name of the shop came from a fly that I created.
Okay.
Called the Evening Sun. It was a streamer fly that I use for fishing for landlocked salmon. And my email address is Charlie, C-H-A-R-L-I-E, @eveningsunflyshop.com.
Fantastic. Well, folks, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on It's Your Town.